The research vessel's scientific glory drifted silently through the asteroid field of the 442 system, its massive hull gleaming under the distant orange star. Captain stood on the bridge, her 6 arms working various control panels, while her large, multifaceted eyes scanned the holographic displays. They had been the galaxy's premier researchers for over 3,000 years, their insatiable curiosity driving them to catalog every form of life they encountered. Captain called out science officer from his station, his voice carrying an unusual tremor of excitement. We're detecting massive energy signatures from the 3rd planet. The readings are unprecedented. His head swiveled toward him, her antennae twitching with interest. Define unprecedented. The energy output suggests a civilization that has mastered both nuclear fusion and antimatter manipulation. But Captain, the strange part is that we're also detecting what appears to be a massive biological entity in orbit around their planet. The creature is easily the size of a small moon. The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship systems. In all their travels across the galaxy, they had never encountered a species that kept creatures of such enormous scale. Most civilizations either feared large predators or had long since eliminated them during their technological advancement. "Take us closer," ordered, "but maintain a safe distance. If this species has tamed something that large, they might consider our approach as a threat." As the scientific glory moved toward the blue-green planet, the crew gathered around the main viewer. What they saw everything they thought they knew about interstellar civilizations. The creature floating in space was indeed massive, with thick, armored plating covering its serpentine body. Its head alone was the size of a large city, and bioluminescent patterns pulsed along its flanks in rhythmic waves. "By the 7 moons," whispered navigation officer, "it's beautiful and terrifying at the same time." But what truly shocked the crew was what happened next. A small spacecraft, barely larger than their shuttle, approached the massive beast. Instead of attacking or fleeing, the creature gently nuzzled the tiny vessel with what appeared to be affection. Through their long-range sensors, they could see the spacecraft's hull glowing with warmth, and the creature's bioluminescent patterns shifted to match the ship's energy signature. "Captain," said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I'm detecting multiple life signs aboard that small vessel. The readings indicate they appear to be a family unit. 2 adults, several smaller beings that must be offspring, and something else. Something with a different biological signature, but clearly part of their social group." Felt her respiratory organs flutter with amazement. Not only had this species tamed a creature of unimaginable size and power, but they were treating it like a companion, like the small domesticated creatures that some species kept for emotional comfort. "Begin recording everything," she commanded. "The Galactic Council needs to see this, and start learning their language. We need to understand how this is possible." Over the following weeks, the crew observed the remarkable relationship between the humans and their massive companion. They watched as the creature, whom the humans called Leviathan, would gently carry spacecraft across vast distances, its body serving as a living space station. They saw how human children would play in specially designed chambers within the creature's body, laughing and running through bioluminescent gardens that grew from Leviathan's internal organs. But the most shocking discovery came when they finally translated enough of the human language to understand their communications. The massive creature wasn't just a domesticated animal or a living tool. It was family. "Levi's getting restless again," they heard one human say to another during a routine communication. "Maybe we should take him to see the nebula in the Andromeda sector. He always likes the pretty colors." "Good idea," came the reply. "And don't forget to ask Sarah if Rex wants to come along. You know how much the dog loves space walks." The crew exchanged bewildered glances. Not only had these humans befriended a cosmic titan, but they were also traveling with what appeared to be a small, 4-legged creature that required special breathing apparatus for space travel. The complexity of their social structure was unlike anything in the galactic databases. The ships had been studying the recordings for days. Her findings were extraordinary. "Captain," she reported during their morning briefing, "I've analyzed the biological relationship between the humans and their companion. The creature's neural patterns show clear signs of emotional attachment and loyalty, but more fascinating is that the humans have somehow formed a symbiotic relationship with it. The creature provides transportation and protection, while the humans maintain its health and provide social interaction. But how? Asked. Our models suggest that any creature of that size would require the resources of multiple star systems to survive. How do they feed it? That's where it gets interesting, Doctor continued, pulling up a holographic display of Leviathan's internal structure. The creature doesn't just eat matter, it feeds on energy itself. Solar radiation, cosmic background radiation, even the quantum fluctuations of spacetime. The humans have learned to supplement its diet by directing it toward energy-rich regions of space. They've essentially turned the entire galaxy into its feeding ground. The implications were staggering. While most species struggled to expand beyond their home systems due to resource limitations, humans had partnered with a creature that could sustain itself anywhere in the universe. They weren't just space travelers, they were nomads on a cosmic scale. Communication officer raised one of her smaller arms hesitantly. Captain, I've been monitoring their transmissions to other human settlements. It appears this isn't the only such creature they've befriended. There are reports of at least 12 others, each traveling with different human families across various sectors of the galaxy. Felt her worldview shifting fundamentally. The galaxy's understanding of civilization had always centered around planets, systems, and territories. But humans had transcended those limitations entirely. They had turned the cosmos itself into their home, with living creatures the size of moons as their companions and guardians. We need to make contact, she decided. The Galactic Council must learn about this immediately, but we approach them as students, not as superiors. Clearly, we have much to learn from these humans. As the scientific glory prepared to make first contact, none of the crew could have predicted how this encounter would reshape not just their understanding of civilization, but the very fabric of galactic society itself. The humans had achieved something that countless species had deemed impossible. They had found a way to make the infinite darkness of space feel like home. And they had done it not through conquest or domination, but through love, family, and the simple act of caring for another living being, even if that being happened to be large enough to swallow their ship whole. The first transmission was simple. Hello, travelers. We are the research vessel Scientific Glory from the Collective. We come in peace and curiosity. Might we speak with you? The response that came back would haunt dreams for cycles to come. Of course, always happy to meet new friends. Levi's excited to meet you too. He's never seen anyone quite like your ship before. Fair warning though, our dog Rex might bark at you when you come aboard. He's protective but harmless. Would you like to join us for dinner? We were just about to feed Levi and it's quite a sight to see. The casual warmth in their voice, the easy invitation to share a meal, the concern for their pet's behavior. It was so fundamentally different from the formal protocols that governed most interstellar relations. These humans weren't just survivors in the void of space. They were a family welcoming strangers to their dinner table. A dinner table that happened to be inside a living creature, larger than most asteroids. As prepared her crew for the most important first contact in galactic history, she couldn't help but wonder, what other impossible things had these remarkable humans accomplished? And more importantly, what could the galaxy learn from their extraordinary approach to life among the stars? The airlock of the human vessel Wandering Star hissed open, and Captain stepped through with her small diplomatic team. What greeted them was beyond anything their training had prepared them for. They were inside Leviathan, but it felt more like stepping into a living garden than the digestive tract of a cosmic predator. Bioluminescent vines draped from the walls, pulsing with gentle blue and green light. The floor beneath their feet was soft and warm, covered in something that resembled grass but glowed faintly with each step. The air itself seemed alive, filled with tiny motes of light that danced around them like microscopic fireflies. "Welcome aboard," called out a human voice, and turned to see a family approaching them. The humans were smaller than she had expected, barely reaching the height of her lower shoulder, but they moved with a confidence that spoke of complete comfort in this extraordinary environment. The lead human was a female with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes. "I'm Captain Sarah," she said, extending her hand in what had learned was a human greeting gesture. "This is my husband, our daughter Luna, and our son, and this little troublemaker," she gestured to a small, furry creature trotting beside them, "is Rex." Doctor knelt down to examine the creature called Rex, her scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic protocol. The small being had 4 legs, a tail that moved in rhythmic patterns, and large, expressive eyes that seemed to hold intelligence despite its diminutive size. Remarkable, she murmured. The creature shows signs of selective breeding for loyalty and emotional intelligence. How long has your species maintained such companions? Chuckled, a sound that seemed to resonate through Leviathan's walls. Rex's ancestors have been with humans for over 15,000 years. We call them dogs. They were our first friends when we were still bound to our home planet. As they walked deeper into Leviathan's body, marveled at the sophistication of the living environment. Chambers had been grown rather than built, each one serving a specific purpose. They passed through a vast garden where human children played among floating spheres of water, their laughter echoing through the organic corridors. "How is this possible?" asked, his translator struggling to convey his amazement. "How do you live inside a creature without harming it?" Luna, a girl who couldn't have been more than 12 years old, answered with the casual confidence of someone explaining something obvious. "Levi and us, we help each other. We keep him healthy and happy, clean the parasites from his scales, and make sure he doesn't get lonely during long jumps between systems. He gives us a home and takes us to places we could never reach in regular ships." "But the resources," Doctor pressed. "How do you sustain a creature of this size?" Slightly older than his sister, pointed to a series of crystalline structures growing from the walls. "See those? They're energy converters. Levi can eat starlight, cosmic radiation, even the energy from black holes if we get close enough. Dad taught us how to navigate to the best feeding spots. It's like being a farmer, but instead of soil, you're working with the entire galaxy." Captain led them to what appeared to be a command center, though it looked nothing like any bridge had ever seen. Instead of metal and circuits, everything was alive. Tendrils of neural tissue connected to devices that seemed to be grown rather than manufactured. The walls pulsed with information, displaying star charts and system data through patterns of bioluminescence. "This is where we work with Levi to plan our routes," Sarah explained, placing her hand on what looked like a nerve cluster. Immediately, the walls around them lit up with a three-dimensional map of local space. "He can sense gravitational currents and energy fields that our instruments can't detect. We share our knowledge of safe harbors and interesting phenomena, and he shares his perception of space itself." Rex trotted over to a smaller cluster of nerves and placed his paw on it. The map shifted, highlighting several systems with a warm, golden glow. "Even Rex helps," said, scratching behind the dog's ears. "He's got an instinct for danger that saved us more times than I can count. Dogs have been warning humans about threats for. Why would space be any different?" Doctor was frantically recording everything, her multiple limbs working to capture data from every angle. "The symbiosis is complete," she muttered. "Not just between humans and the creature, but including the smaller companion species. It's a three-way partnership that spans multiple evolutionary trees." As they toured more of Leviathan's interior, began to understand the true scope of what she was witnessing. This wasn't just a family living in space. It was a new form of civilization entirely. They passed workshops where humans crafted tools from Leviathan's shed scales, each one incredibly strong yet lightweight. They saw nurseries where human infants played alongside Leviathan's own offspring, tiny creatures no larger than Rex that would someday grow to cosmic proportions. "The children grow up together," Luna explained, gently petting one of Leviathan's bobbies. "By the time they're adults, the bond is so strong they can almost read each other's thoughts. My friend lives on Titan. That's another Leviathan about 50 light years from here. She can feel when Titan is happy or sad or excited about something new they've discovered." The implications were staggering. Humans weren't just traveling through space. They were creating a network of living ships that could communicate across vast distances. Each Leviathan was both a home and a node in a galaxy-spanning nervous system. "Captain," said carefully, "your species has achieved something that our models suggested was impossible. How long have humans been living this way?" Sarah exchanged a look that spoke of shared memories and deep understanding. "The first successful bonding happened about 300 years ago," Sarah answered. "We found Levi's ancestor trapped in the gravity well of a dead star, slowly starving. Most species would have seen a dangerous predator, but humans, well, we saw a scared animal that needed help. My great-great-grandmother was part of that first rescue mission," added. "She was just a veterinarian on a research vessel, but she convinced the crew to try feeding the creature instead of fleeing. Took them 6 months to gain its trust, but once they did." "Everything changed," Rex barked and startled. She hadn't realized the small creature could speak. "Did that animal just—" "Oh yeah, Rex is enhanced," said casually. "All the dogs that travel with Leviathans get neural boosters, makes communication easier, and they can help monitor Levi's health systems. Rex probably knows more about xenobiology than most graduate students." Rex wagged his tail and projected a holographic display showing Leviathan's current vital signs. "Levi's calcium levels are a bit low," he announced in a voice that was definitely canine but clearly intelligent. "We should stop at the crystalline nebula on our next route. The mineral content there will help his shell regeneration." Felt her understanding of the universe shift once again. Humans hadn't just tamed cosmic titans. They had uplifted their ancient companion species to serve as partners in this incredible endeavor. Dogs, already bred for loyalty and intelligence, had become living medical scanners and early warning systems. "Your species has created something unprecedented," she said, her voice filled with awe. "A civilization without borders, without planets, without the constraints that limit the rest of us to our home systems." "We're not the only ones," Sarah said, her smile widening. "Humans are natural adopters. We've got families living with crystal entities in the clouds, others who partnered with plasma beings near galactic core. There's even a group that's made friends with a collective consciousness in the void between. Wherever we go, we try to find ways to help and be helped in return." "But why?" Doctor asked. "Why not build ships and stations like every other spacefaring species? Why choose this path?" Luna answered with the wisdom that only children seem to possess. "Because space is big and scary and cold. But when you've got family with you, when you've got friends who care about you, it doesn't matter how far you are from home. You are home." As if responding to her words, Leviathan's walls pulsed with warm, golden light, and somewhere deep in the creature's throat, a sound like a contented purr resonated through the chamber. "He likes you," Rex announced, his tail wagging faster. "Levi says your ship has a good energy pattern, not aggressive like most military vessels, more like curious puppies." Couldn't help but laugh at the comparison. "Rex, would you mind if I asked you something? How does it feel to be so far from your species?" The enhanced dog tilted his head thoughtfully. "Earth isn't my home," he said simply. "Home is wherever Sarah and the kids are. Home is making sure Levi is healthy and happy. Home is the smell of Luna's hair when she hugs me after a nightmare about black holes. Home isn't a place, Captain. Home is who you love and who loves you back." The simple profundity of the statement struck like a physical blow. In all their of space exploration, her people had been trying to recreate the wherever they went. They built artificial gravity to match their planet's pull, replicated their atmosphere exactly, even imported soil from there to make their colonies feel familiar. But humans had done something far more radical. They had redefined home itself. "I think," said slowly, "that my people have." 6 months after first contact with the family, the Galactic Council chamber had never seen such chaos. Representatives from over 200 species filled the vast amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of sounds, lights, and psychic emanations that the translation matrix struggled to process. Ambassador Al of the Hegemony Coalition stood at the central podium, his four arms gesticulating wildly as he addressed the assembly. "The humans represent a fundamental threat to established galactic order," he declared, his voice carrying the authority of a species that had dominated 3 star systems for. "Their nomadic lifestyle makes trade regulation impossible. Their creature companions could easily be weaponized. And their rapid expansion threatens territorial boundaries that have been stable for thousands of years." A wave of agreement rippled through the chamber from the more traditional species. The Empire, the corporate syndicate of Tau, and the mechanical collective all voiced similar concerns. For them, the human way of life represented chaos, uncertainty, and a challenge to the very foundations of their power structures. But not everyone agreed. "With respect, Ambassador Al," interrupted Dr. Aura from the Science Council, "our research teams have been studying human communities for the past 6 months. We've found no evidence of aggressive expansion or territorial conquest. In fact, they seem remarkably peaceful." Captain rose from her seat in the delegation. "If I may address the council," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "I've spent considerable time with human families. What Ambassador Al calls a threat, I call an opportunity. The humans have achieved something we thought impossible, a truly sustainable form of interstellar civilization." She activated her holographic display, showing footage from her visits to various human communities. They require no planets to strip mine, no systems to deplete, no conquered territories to maintain. Their Leviathan companions feed on energy that would otherwise go to waste. They've created closed-loop ecosystems that could theoretically sustain themselves until the heat death of the universe. The chamber fell silent as delegates watched video of human children playing with baby Leviathans, of families tending bioluminescent gardens that recycled their waste into nutrients, of dogs and humans working together to maintain complex biological systems that no artificial technology could replicate. But the precedent, protested representative from the mining consortium. If other species adopt their methods, what happens to established trade routes, to resource management agreements, to the very concept of borders and sovereignty? It was then that the chamber's main screen flickered to life, showing an incoming transmission. The image that appeared made the entire assembly gasp in unison. Sarah stood on what appeared to be the bridge of the wandering star, but behind her, visible through a transparent wall of living tissue, was a view of space that no delegate recognized. "Greetings, Galactic Council," Sarah said, her voice calm despite the magnitude of the moment. "I'm sorry we couldn't attend in person, but we're currently about 3,000 light-years beyond the galactic rim, helping our friend Levi explore some interesting gravitational anomalies we detected out here." 3,000 light-years beyond the rim. The distance was so vast that most species would need generation ships and centuries of travel to reach such a place. Yet this human family was treating it like a casual day trip. "We understand there's been some debate about our way of life," Sarah continued. "We'd like to offer a different perspective. Rex, would you like to say hello to the council?" The enhanced dog appeared on screen, his tail wagging as he looked directly at the assembled delegates. "Hi, everyone. Sarah asked me to show you something cool we discovered out here. Levi, can you extend your sensor array?" The view behind Sarah shifted as Leviathan's massive form unfolded structures that had been hidden within his body. The creature's sensory organs spread like cosmic flowers, each one the size of a battleship, revealing a vista that took the council's breath away. They were looking at the birth of a galaxy. In the deep void beyond their own spiral arm, matter and energy were swirling together in the first stages of galactic formation. Stars were being born in vast nurseries of gas and dust, and in the distance, the faint outline of what would someday be spiral arms was beginning to take shape. "We're the first conscious beings to witness this," Rex announced with obvious pride. "Levi can see gravitational patterns that span millions of years. He knew this was going to happen and brought us here just in time. We're recording everything for the scientific community, of course. Knowledge should be shared." Dr. Ara leaned forward in her seat. "The implications are staggering. They're not just exploring known space, they're discovering entirely new regions of the universe. The scientific value alone is exactly the point," Sarah said, having heard the comment through their communication link. "This is what we're trying to tell you. When you're not constrained by borders or territorial disputes, when you're not spending all your resources defending fixed positions, you're free to explore, to discover, to learn. The universe is vast beyond imagination, and we've barely scratched the surface." Appeared on screen beside his wife, holding their youngest child, a baby who couldn't have been more than a year old. The infant reached out toward the screen, gurgling happily at the sight of so many strange and wonderful beings. "Our daughter Emma here will grow up thinking this is normal," said, bouncing the baby gently. "To her, playing with cosmic titans and watching galaxies being born will be as natural as breathing. She'll form bonds with creatures we can't even imagine yet, explore regions of space that most species consider impossible to reach. And she'll do it all while surrounded by family, by love, by the kind of security that comes from knowing you belong somewhere, even if that somewhere is the infinite black between the stars." Ambassador Al raised one of his arms. "All very poetic, but you still haven't addressed our concerns about regulation and oversight. How do we know your creatures won't become aggressive? How do we monitor your movements or ensure you're not violating territorial boundaries?" It was Luna who answered, stepping into view with the casual confidence of a teenager who had grown up among wonders. "Ambassador Al, right? The one from the Hegemony Coalition? I've been studying your species in our database. You guys haven't had a new discovery or innovation in over 400 years. You keep building the same ships, colonizing the same types of planets, fighting the same territorial disputes that your great-great-grandparents fought. The assembled delegates stirred uneasily. Being lectured by a human child was not something any of them had expected. "See, that's the difference between us," Luna continued. "You're trying to control the universe, to make it fit into neat little boxes that you can understand and regulate. But the universe doesn't want to be controlled. It wants to be explored, experienced, loved. When you try to cage something as vast as infinity, you just end up caging yourself." Rex appeared beside her, his enhanced intelligence allowing him to address the council with surprising eloquence. "My ancestors were wolves," he said. "Wild, free, dangerous. But they chose to join human families because they saw something in humans that they valued more than freedom alone. They saw love. They saw loyalty. They saw a pack that would never abandon them, no matter how far they traveled or how dangerous the journey became." The dog's simple words carried more weight than hours of political rhetoric. Around the chamber, delegates began to shift uncomfortably as they realized what they were witnessing wasn't just a different way of life. It was an indictment of their own. "Levi chose us for the same reason," Rex continued. "Not because we're stronger or smarter than other species, but because we're willing to care for others without trying to own them. We don't see the universe as a resource to be exploited. We see it as a home to be cherished." The transmission shifted as joined the group, now clearly a young adult who moved with the confidence of someone who had spent his entire life navigating the cosmos. "I know what you're all thinking," he said. "This sounds too good to be true. There must be a catch, right? Some hidden cost or dangerous consequence." He gestured toward the forming galaxy behind him. "The cost is that you have to give up the illusion of control. You have to trust that the universe is vast enough for everyone, that there's no need to fight over resources when infinite energy streams through space every second of every day. You have to believe that cooperation is stronger than competition, that love is more powerful than fear. And the consequence," Sarah added, "is that you'll discover wonders beyond your imagination. You'll form friendships with beings you never knew existed. You'll explore regions of space that no one has ever seen before. You'll learn that home isn't a place you defend. It's a feeling you carry with you wherever you go." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just about humans and their strange companions. This was about a fundamental shift in how civilized beings related to the universe itself. Dr. Ara was the first to speak. "Council members, I move that we establish the Human Integration Protocol, not to regulate or restrict their activities, but to learn from them. To send observers and researchers who can study their methods and potentially adapt them for our own species." "Seconded," called out Representative Eth from the Peaceful Collective. "The scientific and cultural benefits alone justify such a program." But it was Ambassador Al's response that surprised everyone. The proud representative of the Hegemony Coalition stood slowly, his four arms trembling slightly. I withdraw my objections," he said quietly. "In 400 years, as the young human pointed out, my people have discovered nothing new. We've built nothing that wasn't a variation on old designs. We've expanded our territory, but not our understanding." He looked directly at the screen where the family stood against the backdrop of cosmic creation. "Perhaps it's time we learned what it means to explore rather than conquer, to discover rather than claim, to love rather than fear." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, a species' way of life was not just tolerated, but celebrated as a model for others to follow. The Human Integration Protocol was established within days, and representatives from dozens of species requested permission to send observers to study human communities. But the real revolution had already begun. Across the galaxy, young beings of countless species looked up at the stars and imagined a different life. Instead of seeing distant suns as potential conquests or resources to be exploited, they began to see them as destinations for wonder, places where new friends might be waiting, cosmic playgrounds where the only limit was imagination itself. The family's transmission ended with a simple message that would be remembered as the moment everything changed. "The universe is big enough for all of us. Come see for yourselves." And one by one, species across the galaxy began to do just that. They left their home systems not as conquerors or colonizers, but as explorers seeking connection, understanding, and the kind of family that transcends the boundaries of biology, physics, and space itself. The age of territorial expansion was ending. The age of cosmic community had begun. And it had all started with a family, their loyal dog, and their gentle giant friend who was happy to carry them wherever their curiosity led, as long as they were together.